Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, listener. It's Lara Jane, your host here, and I am here with a new friend of mine. Her name is Veronica. Veronica and I are taking a class together of helping us to brand ourselves for the business world. I'm going to put Veronica's headshot, bio, and all the ways to get a hold of her in the show notes. So feel free to go there and look her up, but let's turn the time over for Veronica. Veronica, looking at your bio, it says you're a hypnotist. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I decided to become a hypnotist last year. I used to be a coach, and I just decided to become a hypnotist because I spent so much time listening to different hypnosis recordings. I worked with a hypnotist before, and I found it so helpful for different things, whether it had to do with self-worth, abundance, confidence, fear of needles, driving. And it was funny because I listened to it for hypnosis for years. And then few times people said to me, like, why don't you just become a hypnotist? And I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, that's really hard. I don't think I can do that. And then one of my friends from another class, she teaches a class on hypnosis. And I literally just signed up for the class the day it was starting because suddenly I figure out I was ready and I decided to do that.
How does hypnosis differ from affirmations or meditation or subliminal programming?
Well, hypnosis is different in a way that it works definitely with your subconscious mind. And a lot of things that we maybe believe in have been programmed by either our parents, caregivers, grandparents, teachers between the ages and between 4 and 7. So that's the age when generally we're not even aware of what's happening in our lives, right? But someone else keeps programmed it for us. And a lot of times even though we're grown up, we might be in our 20s, 30s, 50s, 70s, and we might be still doing things the way our parents or teachers were doing things. And a lot of times we're not even aware of that. So if someone told you like you're stupid at math, or you're bad at writing, or you're not creative, you might be 30, 40 years later still believing those thoughts just because someone else said them to you many years ago and don't even question them.
In my experience, I call that domestication. Our parents teach us to behave a certain way. We are rewarded for one behavior and punished for another. And some of those are just that expectation that my husband talks about it all the time. I am to be seen and not heard. Those things that like keep us small. How do you get people to overcome that?
Right. That happens for so many people because the kids learn like you got to be seen, not heard. Especially I grew up in the former Soviet Union. So that was, living in small places. The parents didn't want to hear you much. Like you could be seen, but not heard. But it's learning, being aware of what's going on in your life. Like where are those voices? What's stopping you from achieving your dreams? Is it something that you're lacking self-confidence, or maybe it's a belief, like you said, it could be like, I should be seen but not heard, because if you have that belief deep down, you might be doing like spinning like a hamster in a wheel without even realizing that that belief is still kind of guiding you through life and preventing you from achieving the goals and the dreams that you have.
But, as little kids, we don't even really know the difference of being able to listen or be heard. I remember a time when we're driving down the road and I'm in the back of the station wagon and I'm trying to talk to my dad. And he's like, Jane, I can't hear you. And so I started singing, and then I was told to shut up. Like, I thought you couldn't hear me. So we get programmed with things and we don't even realize we haven't really learned the definitions yet. So how do you separate that?
Right. So a lot of times, like even when I work with people, a lot of times when you just ask people where certain beliefs came from, like I'm not good at math, or, like that's something, like your parents will tell you to shut up. And the parents don't even realize it because they might be just busy. They'll be like, Jane, just shut up because I'm busy, right? But honestly, that kind of just even like one interaction, it's more how the kid interprets it, right? Because it's not something that probably traumatic in itself, but there are so many different ways that a child can interpret that. They'll be like, that I'm not loved. My parents don't care about me, even though maybe everything the parents do care about the child, but the child, if they interpret it, that's how they start living their life, because that starts guiding them that I'm not loved. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. And it's not that they think about it consciously every day. It's just something that is in their subconscious mind. And it affects maybe it affects their relationship with their parents and people they work with, or their partners, or their kids, because it can just continue going from generation to generation, basically.
So if our listener is one that had been told to be quiet and now they're out in the corporate world and they're not speaking up, how do they change that?
I think there are different ways. I think first of all, the awareness, I think, is the first step, and just realizing, because if you're just not speaking up and you're just maybe like a lot of people are labeled as shy or something else. So by their parents also, like that's where it starts usually when they're young, like, oh, she's shy. So, and the people grow up with it thinking, I'm shy, I don't speak up, I'm afraid to speak up. So they don't really challenge themselves because they don't think they can challenge themselves, or it's worth challenging themselves. So part of it, when I work with people, like in my practice with coaching and hypnosis, we do both, because we want to do a deep dive and understand what's happening in people's lives, what their beliefs are, because we want to reprogram the beliefs they have. And a lot of times it's just going back to seeing where the beliefs coming from, where they originated, and how they feel about themselves, what's holding them back. Maybe speaking up could be, changed through coaching and hypnosis. And I find that hypnosis just helps to reprogram the subconscious mind. So it just does it in a faster way.
So say the average person's 40 years old and they've been replaying these tapes in their head since age 5, so for 35 years. How long does it take to change that?
I think we were looking generally at a few months, and usually what I do with people work maybe 5-6 sessions on things like that, and we usually meet every 2 weeks. But I also give people homework to listen to the hypnosis recordings, and also whatever the beliefs we create them reframing the beliefs that they had. Also encourage them to record it in their own voice, so they can start embodying it, incorporating it in their beliefs, so they start believing in things that something is possible for them. And part of it is also going back, you can learn so many different things, of course, but it's also taking action. So whether you're doing coaching, hypnosis, but a very important part of it is taking action. And I don't necessarily push people into taking huge steps, like a lot of people believe in just jumping of the board into the water. But for some people, it just doesn't work. They just wouldn't do it. So to me, it's a lot of times it's just breaking it down to like the smallest little step, like baby steps, and getting a little bit better every day, like by a few percent just every day. But looking at it as the compound effects, because that's what adds up. The more you build your muscle, the more like the strength, say speaking up, right? It's just saying maybe a few words during the meeting, but then it's just growing on top of that. So it's the compound effect that's very important. And the funny thing is, also once you do something, once you get out of your comfort zone, once you do it, you look at it back like a month, 2 months later, and it just seems easy, right?
Mhm.
And then we just forget. We don't even give ourselves credit for that anymore, because now you look back, you'll be like, oh, well, that was easy. But you might have struggled with it for years and years just to take that first little baby step.
Right. And I'm totally into baby steps. I like it to feel comfortable. I'm not a jump in the deep end of the water guy. I'm going to wade in very
Right.
nice and slow and get used to it. That's my approach. I know there's a lot of people that like to jump into the deep end. Do you have people that want to jump in the deep end?
Yeah, some people do. And you know what? There are just people people are very, everybody's different. So it's more realizing that people are not the same. There's not one approach that works with, with everybody, because some people just ready to go. They'll just jump in. But some people take a while, I'll tell you, last year I started going for cold plunges in the ocean, and I'm in New Hampshire, so obviously it's cold here. But it's funny because it took me a long time to get to the stage to get in the water. I never used to even go in the water in the summer. And then I'll be slowly, step by step getting in the ocean, going, deeper up to my shoulders. But then I would see other people, and even after a few times, but then I would see other people who would be coming the first time when it was already cold, and they would be doing it the first time. And they would be just running into the water. And I would be looking at them and just thinking, how do they do it faster than me? I've already done it a whole bunch of times. And I started when it was warmer, and they are way ahead of me. But that's all right, because everybody's doing things at their own pace, speed. What's more important, that people take action. So because if someone doesn't take action at all and they just think it's all or nothing, so and then we go into the perfectionist mode, right? Some people just either I do it perfect way, I'm all in, or I don't do it at all. And then people just don't do it. So it's not necessarily all or nothing. There are a lot of shades of gray between white and black. So just for a lot of people, it's just baby steps that work better.
So as a hypnotist, does it work faster for someone who's all in versus someone who's baby stepping?
Right. I think it's the question is, some people are baby steps. To me, it's all about the compound effect, right? It's like the turtle and the hare, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone jumps in, but then they lose their momentum. So it's about more the commitment, because if something takes a few months or a little bit longer, that's all right. But right, if you're committed, but if you're not committed, you just jump in, but then you lose that steam, then it doesn't matter, right? So it's more about the commitment level. How committed are you to what you want to achieve? Are you really committed, and why is it important to you? Because understanding your why, we talked before earlier about the smoking. So if someone wants to smoke, it's great, but you have to understand the reason, right? The person wants to should be wanting to stop smoking. It's not that their parents or their families tell them to smoke, or because the doctor told them to do it. They need to want to do it themselves.
Right. And I think when we talked about that earlier, we were talking about how we replace a habit with a habit, because you don't want that void or that thing that just fills in negatively. And I had told you the story about Dean at the office that I worked with, who I loved working with, and he was amazing. And then he quit smoking, and all of a sudden he was not getting his job done. He was not focused. He was not, all those things that made him shine were gone. And I really think it's because he quit going outside and taking that 10-minute break on his own and focusing. And so what do you replace things with? How do you put a positive thing in that replacement so that we're not in that void situation?
Totally. And that's a great example, Jane, how, when you're trying to get one habit, is asking yourself, what do you want to replace that habit with? Because it's got to be something productive. So, and for a lot of people probably around Dean, right? A lot of people probably wanted him to stop smoking, thinking that will be great for him and for everybody else that he wouldn't really go outside or waste his time.
Great for his doctor and his wife, but for me, it was really not good.
Right. So it's you just think be careful what you wish for. Right? So, but that just shows that when someone is trying to get rid of any kind of bad habits, whether it's smoking or alcohol dependency or anything else, you got to really understand why you want to do that. And you want to understand what's behind it. Why, like, you're smoking. What, it's not just a habit, but like they say the same thing about drinking. Like, happy people don't become alcoholics, right? There's something within them, emotional challenge or something else, that pushes them to drink. When they drink, they find some kind of peace, comfort, whatever they're doing. Same thing overeating, same thing smoking, with all those things. So if someone stops overeating or smoking, what do they replace it with? And there's a reason why they're doing, like, if someone is smoking, what are they doing? Are they getting rid of stress? Is it just gives them time to go outside they need alone time? Or is it helps them with their anxiety, just even like holding the cigarette? So if suddenly they don't have that, well, how are they going to cope with their anxiety? How are they coping with their stress? Now they don't even go outside because they don't want to be next to other smokers, right? They just sit on the desk instead. And they're just feeling stressed, maybe anxious now that they don't have that habit, right? And they don't know what to replace it with. So they would probably end up replacing it either with something else, either alcohol or some other bad habit, or maybe chewing gum that can also have some other issues. Or
so say our listeners are a smoker and they're going, well, I don't know what to replace it for. Can hypnosis help choose that thing? Or is that something we need to choose consciously? And then
that's something we do work like with in coaching. So we incorporate, because we want to see what's happening in the person's lives, what's important to them, what is the reason that they're smoking, what is the reason that might be hard for them to stop smoking, maybe because they're, it helps them deal with stress and anxiety. So finding healthy, holistic ways to deal with things that are bothering them. Maybe they just need a 10-minute break. Maybe they just need to be alone. But it's understanding, because the more aware people are, sometimes I work with people who might just not ready to stop smoking, but they just become at least more aware of the situation when they start smoking, usually that they're feeling stressed, anxious. So they just reduce the number of cigarettes because they're more aware what triggers them. So they can just replace it with something else, whether they have a drink of, like have a glass of water, or they just meditate, or they just do something else instead.
So to help our listener, how would you incorporate that into changing their self-talk, into helping them find that?
Right. So the self-talk is always very powerful. And usually I just suggest to people, first of all, being aware how much time do people spend in negative self-talk, because for someone it might be 5%, for someone else might be 95% of the time, right? So it's being aware of where your thoughts are. And a lot of times for people, if they're going maybe through some stressful event or something else is happening in their lives, a lot of times, and some people just tend to be more stress prone to others just because they don't have the good tools that they don't usually learn it at school, how to deal with stress, anxiety. But it's realizing what's behind that stress and anxiety, what causes it, and being aware how much time they spend in it. Because a lot of times for people, they just take one thought and then it just snowballs into like a huge thought storm, right? And it might not be even anything like really significant, but you just think someone said something to you, and then you just make assumptions about this person, or someone is mean to you, or someone is like, crazy, or, like it's so easy to go, this person hates me, or, the life is horrible. The life is bad. Like, why everything is happening to me? I'm always attracting bad things. But it's also like being aware of that. And I always suggest to people doing pattern interrupts. Once you're aware of the thought, which is a very important part of it, is doing a pattern interrupt, like saying cancel, or stop it, and switching your attention to, because what we focus on, we attract. So what do you want instead? So because something is negative, that's something you don't want. So like being able to realize what you don't want and focus on, with Abraham Hicks, I know you're a big fan. It's like, what do you want instead? What do you want to focus on? Like something that is positive, right? Whether it's positive thought, or how can you switch attention to that?
Right. So let's say Jane suffers from anxiety. What I'm hearing you say is I need to identify where it comes from. I have no clue. I know how to unrespond. Like I have responded. Now I have to back up and rewind. And then the other thing that you talked about was pattern interrupters. And in my life, I've worked on my self-talk over and over and over again. And I will be talking to somebody out loud and vocally, and I'll go, wait, back up. Like I try not to use the word try. I work on not using try. I work on not using just. I work on not using don't. And when I find myself say them, and I'll do it right in front of people, wait, back up. I'm not trying. I'm going to change that, and so I make it very vocal because I don't want just my subconscious to hear it. I want everything around me to say, this is not how I speak, and I will change it. And so the pattern interruption, I totally get that part. And I'm still a little bit struggling of how do I understand I know the trigger, but I don't know the source of way back when what that trigger is. And so
in a lot of times, no, I don't think you really need to know. I think something when I work with someone with coaching hypnosis, for a lot of things, we do deep dive and everything else. So just to understand deeper, but like if someone is doing things on their own, I think it's less important to trying to figure that out versus being aware of your thoughts and what's happening with your thoughts. If they're like, it's 95% of your thoughts are negative, and just being able to interrupt the thought pattern and just replace it with something else. Mm-hmm. And just realizing where, like we talked about earlier, about like I said, we live in the feeling of our thinking, not our circumstances. So it's realizing that a lot of issues of stress is coming from our thinking, not circumstances. Because if you ask someone why they're stressed, they'll generally tell you, because A, B, C, and D is happening in my life, right? So it's a relationship, it's this, it's my work, and something else, but it's not those things themselves. It's our thinking about those events that causes the problems.
Yeah, I recently labeled an incident in my life as PTSD. It's like I had something show up in my life that I have had before, and instantly I had the response I had 5 years ago. I had no idea that you could be triggered like that. Yes. And I was like, whoa, how do you get rid of that? Because it was something that was a learned response before, like 3 years ahead of that. And then all of a sudden, that same trigger that I hadn't even felt that for years just popped right out. And it's like, voila, I'm still here. Go get rid of you. So how do you deal with that? Is hypnosis what you find is the best way to do that?
Right. Hypnosis is very powerful with PTSD, and because it goes back, works with your subconscious mind and something else. And it's interesting that you say that. I know, like, one of my next door neighbors, he was a Vietnam vet who went through a whole bunch of like problems with alcohol before. And we were having conversation not long ago. And he was telling me how, hypnosis helped him with PTSD, that, getting rid of his alcohol addiction and everything else and sort out his life, because he used to go to doctors and like therapists and like nothing like helped him before, he was just having serious problems with alcohol. So it's doing those things, right? So that it just works on PTSD. And I'm also doing, eye movement integration that also works with PTSD by doing different exercises like eye movement patterns that helps people also with PTSD, because it all goes on the feelings underneath, right? Because it's something that happened before. When you get triggered, it just kind of goes, your body goes into fight or flight mode. So it just triggers, because you don't do it consciously, go into that fight or flight state, right? Your body just goes automatically. It just does it. So it's working on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely have responses that I have to step myself back through and figure out, where did it start to go wrong? Because usually we have that really huge, we, as in, I don't know if everybody has them, but when I go through an anxiety attack, I don't recognize it for the first little while that it's getting there. And then all of a sudden I have no rational brain left.
Right.
It's just gone. And you start reacting because you don't know any better.
And then you probably worry, with panic anxiety attacks, I think because people don't know, they start even worrying about what's going to happen, and they start getting really scared about that because of it's the unknown, right? So they start getting scared. And it's funny, I went on a date once with this guy. It was years ago. And he was a friend of a friend. So he came to my place and he was waiting for me while I just needed to finish some work-related stuff. I was like finishing it in my bedroom. And then he started having an anxiety or panic attack.
Oh, no.
And it was supposed to be our first date. So I was like, I had no idea what it was. I was like, that's kind of crazy. Like, can he just get over it? So I was like, do you need some water or something? And then he was like, well, let me call my mother. So he was calling his mother to guide him through the panic attack. And I just said, oh, okay. So like, I'm just going back to the bedroom to finish my work because I didn't even know what to do with the guy.
Yeah, it's debilitating, and it can make you freeze and be unable to even function. And that is so cool that his mother had come up with a process.
I think she also had some issues with that too. So she just knew how to guide him through that panic attack, because I mean, he was just totally out of it. So yeah.
I just posted a video on Facebook that I had seen, and it was a companion dog that recognized somebody who was starting to go through that.
Oh, yeah.
And like got in their face and got them to sit down and got them their phone so they could call help and got them their medicine. I go, I need this friggin' dog, because I don't recognize it until it's too late.
Right. And that's, I think, the big problem. And I know like the people who have dogs that I've heard of that, they, like you said, the dogs really sense the energy so that they can help the person help to be aware, because a lot of times we just don't notice whether it's negative thinking or anxiety, panic attack. We don't notice until we're like probably in the middle of something, because things have started spinning in our heads and everything is going so fast. We just don't remember to slow down and just being like aware of that and focus on our breathing, because breathing is a big part of it. Because if something like anxiety attack or something happens, our breathing is, like out of control.
Right. I have another friend that, in fact, it was right after I posted this video, she started chatting with me on Facebook Messenger, and she's like, that's what my cat does. She wasn't even trained to do that, but she has a Siamese cat that senses when she's starting to have anxiety and starts jumping up on her lap. And she also suffers from stopping breathing. She doesn't just, if she freezes, she doesn't fight or flight, she freezes. And the cat will put its nose in her mouth to remind her to breathe. And I'm like, God, I don't know. How do we get these amazing animals in our lives? Because she's single and she's alone, and she has this cat that is there for her. I shouldn't say alone. She gets out and about, but how amazing. Like, maybe you could help her. Whatever.
Right. But that's like, yeah, amazing. And I think animals are very powerful because they're really sensitive to energy. They don't like to be, like if the person is scared, anxious, a lot of times if the animal is anxious, a lot of times their owner is anxious, right? And they kind of the same thing with the kids. Sometimes, like if I'm working with the adults, if the kids have behavior issues, like a lot of times, like what is the parent doing to contribute a lot of times to that, right? If the parent is, I see a lot of times the parents will be talking about their kids who are like on so many like anxiety medication, anti-stress medication, and this and that. But they're very stressed and anxious themselves. And the things they say to the kids, right? Oh, we're totally broke. We're out of money. We don't have this. We don't have that. So they're stressing the kid by just saying certain things that they're not even aware of. So it's how to we impact people around us, but things that we say, like whether it's our kids or our parents or our friends, all the people around us.
Yeah. I have a brother-in-law, that my husband's brother, that tells his children they're brain dead. Oh, you idiot. Right. You're so brain dead. And I'm going, what are you telling your child? Like, right. What if they internalize that and they think about that for the rest of their lives? His kids are in their 40s now, and they all appear to be successful adults. So maybe it didn't cripple them. But
right. And it's just more like how, they take it. For some people, they probably maybe don't not internalize. But if someone is kept telling you that you're brain dead, that can probably, even if they're successful, can it also slow down their success and progress because they have to do despite all the things that people tell them, versus if someone tells you, oh, you're so smart or you're so intelligent. Like I tell my dog throughout the day that he's brilliant, that he's amazing, right? So I think a lot of times people just say things because they, like a lot of parents, probably more like all the generation think that if they say to you, oh, are you brain dead? That it will encourage you to do more things. And for some people it might, but it's still kind of in your back of your subconscious mind. There's something about being brain dead. So maybe certain things they'll say, oh, I can figure out X, Y, Z because I'm brain dead, right? So it might be some area in their life, they may be successful in some areas, but in other areas, there might be something say, oh, I'm totally brain dead. Like my father keeps telling me that I'm brain dead, right?
So I always wondered if it replays in their mind, because it sure just hurt me to hear it. But yeah, so for our listener that has been raised with some negative talk from their parent, or, you hear this rational explanation that anxiety and panic attacks are just fear and worrying about the future. Oh, yeah, that's your rational brain talking. How do you get the emotional brain to understand it is just the fear of the future and replace that with a more present process?
Right. So with that part of it, hypnosis works very well. So like eye movement integration helps with that as well. And even, coaching helps with that as well, because it's helping people challenge their beliefs, challenge people, with reprogramming their beliefs, and also questioning themselves. And again, going back into taking baby steps, because a lot of times if you have fear of driving, like if I had fear of driving, just listening to hypnosis recording, something else might not necessarily, if I didn't really know how to drive properly, I would still have that fear, just because I didn't have the skills to do that, right? So it's understanding also is it has to do with some kind of skills that the person is lacking, or it's just more like, some fear of, like, say, snakes or spiders that people might just have, that more happens to be an irrational. Some people maybe got bitten by a spider or a snake, but a lot of people just have the irrational fear. So it's working on that and helping people overcome the fear, but it's also taking action. So say if I'm working with someone, fear of snakes and everything else, just get them, like look at the picture of a snake, even like looking first at the picture of a snake, being okay with that, like without getting freaked out. So again, taking like a lot of times for some people, it's just more comfortable taking little baby steps.
Something that you and I haven't talked about, but one of the things that helps me is to go find the spiritual meaning behind that encounter. I used to hate skulls. Like I wouldn't let my kids wear skulls. To me, they were death and evil and negative. And the only way I got over that was learning what the spiritual meaning is behind a display of a skull. And that's that rebirth, that regeneration, that renewal. And all of a sudden, something that had been so negative to me for years and years and years is now something I embrace. And my kids go, Mom, why do you wear skulls? You never let me. It means something different to me now. And so a lot of us have, I don't know, that in our class that we're taking, we were supposed to get spirit animals to help us on our journey. And in my background is my giraffe. The giraffe is my spirit animal. That giraffe is new. I had to buy it just for this.
Right.
But what I learned is in this journey, I need to show up. And I have always wanted to play in the background and be not seen, not heard, just help and do things. And the spirit animal is to tell me that you've always been seen. Now let people enjoy the beauty and what you can offer. And so it's like, oh, it's okay to be seen. I've always been seen. I just didn't know it. And so it's kind of one of those things that it really helps for me to have something to ground. Like, I am going to put the power of peace in this, or, you have the worry stones, you have all these things. It's an outlet. And as much as some of my go, that's woohoo work or that's crazy work, it grounds your brain. Like if you have a worry stone and you're starting to feel that stress and you pick it up, you literally are releasing that stress because that's the process that your body and your brain are allowing it to do. You pick up that stone when you don't need it. It doesn't do that.
Right.
And so I can really see how hypnosis could be amazing to help us integrate that into our minds. But I like trinkets around me to remind me. When I was going, and I'm taking over this conversation, but when I was going,
no, that's great. I think that's very helpful because people can understand. I think the worry stone, but it's something you're holding, but it's probably something similar to what you were talking about when you needed to process things, like at school and college that you needed to doodle, right? So it's just more doing something physical with your hands, right? So touching, feeling, maybe you're a kinesthetic person who really needs to do that, right? So for something else, I know a lot of coaches maybe hold crystals when they coach, or it can be doing something else that people doing the sound bowls, or it comes in different ways how people release or other people's energy, how to get rid of it. But I think people just need different things to help them with that. And it's knowing what it is for you, right? So
I had a granddaughter that she was wanting to feel more confident. And so I says, what is it that, I think she's 11. And what is it about that you want to feel? What is it? And how would you, what would that look like to you? And we ended up taking a necklace that I had, and I had her hold it, and I had her put confidence. I says, I want you to put confidence in this necklace, and I want you to feel the confidence in there, and I want you to wear it. And when you're feeling unconfident, I just want you to touch it. I just want you to remember, I got this. And the second you've put that totem in your life and you touch it, whether it has power or not, our brains are so powerful that it grounds us back to that, oh, I'm confident.
Right.
And so I think taking all of these different modalities that are out there, hypnosis, crystals, whether a crystal is powerful or not, I have plenty, but it's whether it's a placebo effect or not,
Right.
it's real and
It's
it
real.
works. And
Totally.
if it
Right.
works for you, do it. So I really like the idea of the hypnosis. And it sounds like from our earlier conversation, it was about a 20 to 30 minute recorded hypnotic session that
Right.
you do for your clients that they're supposed to listen to 1 or 2 times a day, along with the coaching, which just kind of re-brings everything back. So here I'm
Right.
listening and now I can talk about it. So I'm feeding my internal or my subconscious, but the coaching then brings it into the conscious also. So you're
Right,
getting
as
both
well.
sides.
Right. So that they're aware of what they're doing and just become more aware of also, whether they're thinking maybe negative thoughts or something else. So, a lot of times when people start, they're not even aware of that, right? So they just start noticing things if they happen in negative thoughts. And everybody has them. People think like, well, if I meditate or whatever, I wouldn't have them. Like, it doesn't matter. Even if you meditate, like I've been meditating for I think 12 years, but it's still those thoughts come. It's not that they don't come, because even if you're a monk, the thoughts will come. It's just what you do with each individual one of them. It's like, so you don't have them growing into the whole huge thought storm.
Mhm.
And sometimes it might happen, but then it's just still realizing that tomorrow's a better day. Maybe now I need some time off. Maybe I need to do some self-care, take an apple, go for a walk. And I think the very important part of it, when people feel stressed or anxious, they tend to be like, stay at home. They don't see their friends, or, they just be like on their
I
own,
do that. I
right?
hermit
Because
it.
they're hermit. They're like, just be like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go for a walk. I don't want to do anything. And the best thing to do is like getting out of your head is to go for
Get
a
away.
walk, get away, do some exercise, change of scenery, go to like I'm close to the beach. I can go to the beach. You're probably somewhere where you have rivers,
I
lakes,
can
or
go to the
something else.
mountains.
Or to the mountain, right? Like exactly,
I love to go to the
mountains.
mountains.
Right. And the mountains, it's up for each person. Like you're a mountain person, you go to the mountains, but it's change of scenery, getting out of your house and
Well, I
getting out
would
of your
be a
familiar
beach
environment.
person if I lived by the beach, but I
Beach,
don't.
right? Right. So if you
I
don't, it's like
love the
whatever you
beach.
have, right? So
Yeah.
it's like whatever you have. Maybe when you're on vacation, you go to the beach. So it's like using what you have, but knowing that the best thing to do is like getting some kind of exercise, even at home, trying to just do some get the jumping jacks or stretch a little or do something else, move around, because it gets you out of the same, like the posture that you're in. If you're sitting all slumped up, depressed and everything else. So it's like realizing, sitting with more confident posture, or even like clapping your hands or doing something else, or watching a fun YouTube video or something that will just snap you out of that mode.
Yeah, I love it. I love you. Everything that you've said will help our listener, and just to be able to feel that I can do this. Sometimes we just feel hopeless. Like
Right.
I don't know how to get through, and just having that glimpse of hope gets us to the other side because we keep going.
Right.
So I'm going to admit to my listener right now that, Veronica and I did this twice because I forgot to push record. So it feels like a really long day, but it's not. Anyway, I want to give Veronica an opportunity to give us some closing wisdom and to summarize how hypnosis and eye movement
Integration.
all that integration, how that helps us become, because this podcast is all about is self-love and getting that bully voice out of our heads and becoming our own best friend. How can those things help us do that?
Sure. So like one of the advice that I would like to give to the listeners is just knowing that you're never alone. There's always help out there, and asking for help, because I think when we're in a kind of depressed mode state, a lot of times we just forget that other people can help us, or they can help us to have a different perspective on things, because we look at things almost like a horse that has blinders on, that we just see something, but we don't see the whole picture around us. And having someone else look at things from a different perspective, it's a lot of times very eye-opening, because like one of my meditation teacher says, stress makes us stupid. So which means that when we're stressed, we can't think clearly a lot of times. So we don't have that clarity. So we think that we know everything we need to know, that we're stressed, but a lot of times we just can't see things clearly because of our stress. So it's realizing that. And as for hypnosis, coaching, eye movement integration, I think all of those work together great. Whether like I work a lot of times with entrepreneurs or people who are struggling, whether it's like they have bad habits, smoking, or like trying to lose weight or something else. But a lot of times it has to do with confidence, anxiety, abundance, and self-worth. So we generally, when I start working with people, a lot of it is focused on self-worth and self-love, because a lot of times if people don't love themselves, don't feel that they're worthy of things, it will be hard for them to reach their goals, because whatever they're doing, they just don't feel worthy, whether it's trying to release their weight, or become more abundant in their lives, or become more successful. So I think that really helps with them when they start loving themselves and know that they're worthy, because they technically, everybody thinks like, oh yeah, I'm worthy, but does it actually something that they embody, or they just think that like, oh yeah, I love myself, like because like I go on vacations or whatever. But it's like, how do you talk to yourself when you're alone?
So here's a question, and we're going to go longer because I have this question. I think one of the things I find with a lot of us very successful women is we don't ask for help.
Right.
You know, when we're growing up, our parents go, "Oh, you did it by yourself. You're such a big girl." We want to be big girls and we want to do it. And our parents are proud of us when we do it alone. How do we break that cycle of thinking we have to do it alone and allow support? I want to take away the help. You don't need help. You just need someone to be there just to watch you through the process and to help you get through the process. Because when we use the word help, that makes us feel like a little girl that's not capable. So how do we get over that? I mean, is there some kind of trick, to help us allow for support and what we call in our class we're going the accountability partner?
Right.
I think that's so amazing because they're just here to help you stay on track to your goals, not my goals for you, your
Right.
goals. And so how do you make that transition to
Right. And
allow
I think
for that support?
I think for a lot of women, especially, it's really hard to ask for help because they're so used to trying to be self-sufficient, knowing, because that's how a lot of times they're brought up. Like, you should be able to do everything by yourself. You shouldn't ask for help. So for a lot of people, asking for help, meaning that I'm not capable, that I can't do things myself. But it's realizing, like, where do you need help? Do you need help with someone? Someone might just need help with someone to inspire them, believe that something is possible for them. Another person might need help with something. Maybe they're struggling with their tech issues, right? Because a lot of people, like entrepreneurs, think especially coaches, think that it's coaching is easy because it comes natural to them, but they're struggling with all the tech stuff. So it's, at what point do you ask for help rather than struggle to do it yourself? Or some people might struggle with their negative thinking or something else, the feeling stressed, anxious, and something else, knowing that there is always help, that there are people who can help, who are better at it than you are. Because, like, if I'm struggling and spend weeks, months, years trying to figure out something that I'm not good at, it's probably not the best use of my time versus trying to ask people for help and then get the help, which, like a lot of times, even like the class I know we're taking, I've offered like a lot of people some help and they offered me help as well. something that might take me half an hour to help someone else, like it might take them like hours trying to figure it out, right, by themselves. So it's just realizing how can you utilize other people and being okay asking for help, and maybe even starting with small requests and then seeing that people are okay helping. Because a lot of times we're just afraid of getting a no. And when we're afraid of getting a no, that it seems like, oh my God, if I ask for something, even for a little thing, and it's a lot of times it's the people who usually, I know, give a lot, do a lot of for other people. A lot of times they're the ones who are least likely to ask for help.
Oh, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I would rather help somebody than be helped, but I have really practiced, allowed myself to not always have to be strong, because my upbringing taught me that asking for help was weak. And I've had to realize a tree does not grow by itself.
Right.
It has to have the sunshine and it has to have the rain. And without those two things, it goes nowhere. So be their sunshine for somebody, be the rain for somebody, and allow those things to support you in your growth. And I think is really critical for us.
Right. And even like talking about the tree, think about the root system, right? You're like when you look at the tree, you only see what comes above the ground. But then if you look at their root system underneath, how far it can go and how deep it can go, you realize why those big trees are standing there, and what makes them so powerful, right? Because they have strong roots.
Right. And we're here to help deep water those trees so that they can build stronger roots, so they can withstand the stronger storms.
Totally. Absolutely. I'm with you there, Jane.
I love that there's so many coaches out there. And the main reason I just is like, oh, it's competition. I need but you know what? We resonate with different people.
Right.
That's the things that we went through. Everybody is raised in a different family. And I've told this in other situations. I don't care if you were raised with one kid in your family or 8 children in your family. Every 8 children in that family was raised in a different family. You had a different role. You had a different upbringing. You had different experiences. So I don't care if you were raised in the same family. You did not have the same upbringing. So that whole life that you were raised with teaches you who you are today. It made who you are today. And it's our process to unlearn some of those things and become the independent, supported person that we can be by allowing those other things in and helping us. Do you have some last succinct word of wisdom for our listener before we shut down?
I think it's just know that you're more powerful than you are. And a lot of times that you don't even realize how powerful you are. So it's having people around you, whether they're mentors or someone else, finding those supportive people who can believe that you are more than what you are and that more is.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. I enjoyed doing this twice.
Me too. It was great, Jane.
I'm like, wow, lesson learned. Don't just rely on the thing that says recording.
Yeah, two great conversations.
Yes, I totally have loved spending 2 hours with you today. Listeners, you'll probably get 20 minutes, but this has been a wonderful day for me. Thank you so much. And stay tuned for our next episode, which on the episode after the interview episode is the challenge episode, which gives you a challenge for the week. So stay tuned and listen to that. Thank you.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.